Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we have three segments, three topics that we're going over. We have our On the Horizon segment where we talk about what's coming up in the week ahead. We always do that pretty much unless we just happen to have a week where nothing interesting is coming up. We have our news segment On Beat, in which something just happened today, the day we're recording this. We're actually recording this on a Thursday when we normally record it on a Wednesday because we had an idea that something was going to be happening, and it did. And so our entire news segment, we're not talking about any trailers or anything else. We're talking about one event. And then we have our full spoiler segment in which we are going to be discussing Creature Commandos Season 1 in its entirety. I say that because, it was greenlit as an individual series, but it has been picked up for a second season, so it is now officially Season 1 instead of just the completion of Creature Commandos. Yeah. And so we're going to be talking about those three things. Let's start off with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon. On the horizon.
On the Horizon, as I said, is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. And we're going to start things off with Prime Target. This is a thriller about a mathematician who makes a breakthrough that basically ruins encryption. And it's like a thriller about that and how it affects the world. That's coming on Wednesday, January 22nd to Apple TV Plus, which seems to be the new home of high concept television. The Night Agent is returning for its second season on Thursday, January 23rd on Netflix. Grafted, which is a movie that's kind of being described as Mean Girls meets body horror, or Mean Girls meets Cronenberg. Basically, the idea is being it's kind of about popularity and stuff like that, but then it has to do with skin grafting and weird shit going on with that, and it turns into body horror. That's a movie. It's coming to Shudder on Friday, January 24th. Star Trek Section 31. This is a movie, but it's a direct to Paramount Plus movie, and that's coming on Friday, January 24th. It's tied into the whole Star Trek universe over there, the various TV shows they have that are all kind of running together or connected. Flight Risk. This is that movie with Mark Wahlberg that Mel Gibson directed, where they kind of pretended it wasn't Mel Gibson by saying it was the director of Braveheart and Apocalypto without actually saying Mel Gibson. Remember that?
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so that movie is coming on Friday, January 24th to theaters. Also coming to theaters on Friday, January 24th, Presence. This is a Steven Soderbergh ghost story or ghost movie. And Inheritance, which I think we talked about the trailer for. I'm not sure if we talked about it on the show or if you and I watched it and considered talking about it on the show. I'm not sure. But that's the one about a father and he leaves his spy business to his daughter. She gets involved in it, then he disappears. That's that one we talked about before. That's also coming on Friday, January 24th to theaters. That is our On the Horizon segment, and now we're going to move on to On Beat. On Beat. On Beat is our news segment, and we kind of cut all of our other news stories to focus on one specific topic, something that happened today, as I said, and that is the reveal of the Switch 2. Yes, that is now its official name, Switch 2. No longer going to refer to it as the Switch successor or the Super Switch or anything else.
Yeah, Super Switch was so dumb. I never liked that name. I like
Super Switch just because I have Super NES nostalgia,
I have Super NES nostalgia too. It's one of my favorite systems of all time. Super NES sounds good. Super Switch just kind of doesn't have the same ring to it. I just don't know. I just don't like the sound of it. But it's Nintendo Switch 2. you know what? It's a name. It's kind of a boring name, but it's fine because
it's very un-Nintendo. This is the only Nintendo systems that have had numbers in the title are in the 3DS family, and that had to do with the effect of 3D, not like the number of the system.
Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't DS3.
Yeah,
it wasn't the third DS. It was the sequel to the DS, but it was 3DS because it had a 3D screen, which stopped being a selling point not that far into the system's lifespan. So
this also makes this the second Nintendo system with a 2 in the title. The first being the downgrade from 3DS to 2DS for a cheaper version of the 3DS.
Yeah, exactly. That's when they start to like de-emphasize the 3D.
Yeah. So it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of sad. I like Nintendo being kind of weird and coming up with, get names like GameCube and shit like that. Well, I forgot Nintendo 64, another one that had a number in it. But again, that wasn't the 64th Nintendo system. It was because it was a 64-bit system.
It was just, that was like Nintendo. That was when Nintendo was like really pushing the idea of like graphical superiority with that. That was like the whole selling point was, this is like far more capable than Saturn or
Silicon
PlayStation.
Graphics designed it.
Yeah, we got Silicon Graphics workstations. It's basically magic. I mean, like the code name was Project Reality. Yeah. So it was like that was like, it was weird. You think about it now, like that's very un-Nintendo. But that was like
a code name for Switch 2, did we? It was just always called the Switch successor.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got we learned the code
Switch
name.
Was NX.
Mm-hmm.
Wii U was Project Cafe, right?
You know what? I think I heard like NX2 from somewhere. I can't remember. So it might have been the code name.
Wii U was Project Cafe.
Yes.
GameCube was Dolphin.
Yep. GameCube was Dolphin. N64 was Project Reality. We don't really know the code names for NES and SNES.
Wii was Revolution.
Wii was Revolution. DS was Nitro.
Yeah.
3DS, I know 3DS has a code name. I just can't think of it at the moment.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, we never really got one, like a real public code name for Switch 2. Like we had for Switch, NX was everywhere. Everybody was referring to it as NX.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's because Iwata announced it as NX.
Yeah.
Same thing with Revolution. We know Revolution because it was publicly called that by Nintendo Revolution when they announced it. Wii came later. They never did publicly call Wii U Project Cafe though. That just came out with the leaks.
Yeah.
So that Cafe was never publicly said by Nintendo.
We knew it though because we knew the chips. We knew the code names for the chips. That was public. Yeah. They did that at E3, I think, when they revealed the system.
Yeah. The chips were
Broadway and Hollywood or something, wasn't it?
That was for the Wii.
No, that was the Wii U.
No, that was Wii. Broadway and Hollywood were the chips in the Wii. Espresso was the name of the processor in the Wii U.
Okay, Espresso, yeah. Yeah, okay, that sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't really get a lot with code names here. I mean, we did from some stuff from leaks. We got the name of the code name for the chip from a leak, which is,
we got that.
Was it A249 or something like that?
Oh, you know what? I think we found Cafe for Wii U because that was the developer portal website Nintendo set up for developers. And it was not supposed to be a public facing portal, but people found it and found they were calling it Project Cafe on the dev portal.
Yeah.
So it was
So the Switch 2 name, it's part of me is a little bit sad. Another part of me understands it because they just need the clarity of saying that this is in our system, and nothing says clarity like just a straight up number after. A sequential number.
Sequential number. Yeah.
Because there's another company that put a number in their system that wasn't sequential and what led to confusion, the Xbox One. But they were just following a Silicon Valley trend that was kind of out of control where everybody was just naming their products One.
Yeah, it was so stupid and needlessly confusing. And we won't go into that, because the name is the least important thing. You're going to forget about the name after you get this thing. You're not going to care.
And the name is just part of the thing that we like about it. I'm talking about is just the name is it's the whimsy. It's not even in the name itself. And this still had whimsy to it.
I think the whole point of this trailer and what Nintendo really wanted to hammer home here, as opposed to what they did with the Wii U, was they really want to hammer home that this is a new Switch. Right? Yeah. This is a brand new system, and I like the way they did it too. With this trailer, by having the Switch that we have now physically transform into the Switch 2, that visual, because if you just look at the Switch 2, at a glance, it looks like the Switch. It looks like a Switch.
Yeah.
And I think, like,
And there's a lot of, like, Switch knockoffs now that copied the format.
And I think, like, having the animation of, like, the Switch transforming into the Switch 2 gave you, like, a really easy, like, visual to see, like, exactly what's different. You know, how, like, this is a different product in, like, a really easy to digest way, you know, without them having to, like, explain, like, all the features or anything. You see a Transformer and the first thing, oh, the screen's bigger. Oh, it's got, like, bigger Joy-Cons now. Oh, they're magnetic. You know, you get to see all the features in, like, this neat, succinct way.
I think they could have had even more clarity if they went into some of the technical specifications, but that's very un-Nintendo.
That's un-Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to do that because Nintendo... You know, Nintendo has long maintained that tech specs are not important, at least not to the consumer facing.
Yeah.
I remember way back during the GameCube days, IGN was reporting on like, oh, we asked Yamauchi about the tech specs, and Nintendo representative said the specs aren't important, the games are important. It's like, okay. It's like, that's their line. So they do release the technical specifications, obviously, like developers have them, they do list them on their website, you know, but they don't like highlight them. They don't get on the stage and go, this has like 8 teraflops in it.
Yeah. We're gonna get even less with this because we got a little bit more with the Switch just because it was using an off-the-shelf component. And this is this is using a custom component, which means you're gonna get even less information on it because it's custom and because it's Nintendo, you know? I don't want to go into like all the stuff about the leaks that came before this. We didn't really talk about that on the show.
No, I don't want to.
I think we need to talk about some of the because we never did talk about the leaks. I think it's fair that we should talk about some of the features. And there is one specific thing from a leak that ended up being true, that something else they said that needs to be acknowledged.
I want to preface it by saying all the leaks were true. all the leaked hardware were true. Like everything is here. It looks exactly like the leaks.
Let's go over some of the features. So, we got the C button, except there's no C on it this time. In this trailer, there's no C, but we had that second button on that side.
I want to point that out. It's easy to skate over that and say, oh, there's no C, the leaks were wrong. No, Nintendo edited out the C. They're hiding it.
Obviously. There's literally a button with nothing on it, and that's never going to happen.
Yeah, there's a button with nothing on it, and Nintendo did not showcase it in any way or draw attention to it. They don't want you to, like, notice that. That C button, that's functionality that they're saving for later to explain at a later date, and it's not here. So it's interesting.
There's a USB port on the top as well as a connection on the bottom for the dock.
Yes.
That's new. It's useful because it means that you could be able to play the system or you can charge the system while you're playing it in its table mode or whatever it's called. Which you couldn't really do before unless you had like a special stand that allowed you to or whatever. But this lets you do that, so that's good. It's got a modified version of the kickstand that's closest to what was on the OLED Switch. But it's got like a cutout design now instead of like a full flap that folds out. But it's much better than the OG Switch's like really flimsy plastic one that they had, you know? So that's a nice improvement there. It's significantly bigger than the old Switch. I don't think they showed in the trailer like exactly how big the screen is, but like we've heard, I think 8 inches or something.
Yeah, they didn't give the screen dimensions, but the animation showed
you could see it.
Demonstrably got bigger. You know, it's a bigger Switch. The Joy-Cons are larger size than the Joy-Cons we have now. They're magnetic. Old Joy-Cons will not work with the system.
Unless they hook up wirelessly just for use, but they won't charge.
I don't think they do. I don't think...
We'll have to see on this. There's nothing confirmed either way on that.
There's nothing confirmed, but like...
You can't charge them on the system for sure.
You can't physically connect them to the system. I don't think they're going to be supported just because...
There's different features.
There's different features in them as well, and also like controllers that's accessory sales. So I think Nintendo wants to sell new controllers.
I have to point out that one of the leaks that got like the hardware exactly right, including like the color, the orange and blue, and like the way the colors are represented on the system, had pictures of it, everything, and people were kind of doubting it. One other thing that specific leaker mentioned that is not confirmed yet in the trailer, but it's probably true because he had so much information that was true, is that he said that the analog sticks are Hall effects. which means no more
yeah.
stick drift.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they were.
Yeah, I mean, they literally had
hope
a class action lawsuit against them because of stick drift.
Right, yeah. I hope that's confirmed.
Yeah,
I hope
so
that's confirmed.
it's in Nintendo's financial interest to move away from that. You know?
Oh yeah, exactly. It'd be silly if they weren't doing that.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And the analog sticks do look different than they
do.
did before. And it's not just the coloration, it's like the shape and everything. They're a little bit different. They look a little bit more comfortable too.
Yeah, there wasn't like much going on in this
What do you think about the
trailer.
colors on the Joy-Con?
I like them.
I like the kind of hidden colors with just the peeking out from the analog sticks?
I like it because like it gives you like the best of both worlds, right? The people who like to have their Joy-Cons be uniform, one color, okay, yeah, it looks uniform when you look at it, but then the accents like underneath the analog stick and on the side that connects to the system are the different colors.
Mm-hmm. I'd like a little bit more accent than we got, but I still like it.
I like how subtle it is. I actually do. I think it's cool.
I think it'd be cool if the buttons were also colored with the matching colors, you know?
Right.
So like the D-pad below the one analog stick, I think that's the blue side, right? If those buttons were blue and then the face buttons were like orange or something, I think that would have been even cooler, but
yeah,
just a little bit more detail. But I really like the way they look when they're off of the system, you know, with the blue and orange on the actual, like, on the bumper side of the Joy-Cons. I think that looks really cool. I'm really fond of that. Another rumor that was around that was seemingly confirmed in the video, like it seemed to imply it, was the whole like mouse functionality. Because we know there's some kind of like a sensor, like an optical sensor on the Joy-Cons.
Yeah, and then they showed like the Joy-Cons on their side, you know, with like sensor facing down, obviously, sliding along the floor, and so
ironically looking really like mouse because they were connected to the straps, and the straps were hanging behind like little tails, so they actually
that was definitely like very deliberate. Like this is mouse.
Yeah.
This is mouse functionality, which is interesting. I wonder what they're going to do with that. Like maybe like a new Mario Maker where you could use the mouse functionality to like place objects.
I think some third parties are probably going to use it for like FPS controls as an option. I think it's likely we might get something like a new Mario Paint.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in what Nintendo's going to do with it than what third parties are going to do with it.
I'm interested in what Nintendo's going to do with it that isn't the mouse functionality but still uses that sensor. Because you got to imagine something like WarioWare will have you do something where you like put your thumb over it and move your thumb or do, you know, they're going to do something.
Yeah, they're going to do, that's why I'm like more, right, yeah, that's why I'm more interested in what Nintendo's going to do, because they're going to do some unique things with that. It's not just, this is mouse functionality in the game.
They confirmed backwards compatibility for the system. They had a caveat. They said not everything would work. Now my guess is that that's going to imply stuff like Labo.
Yeah,
because the stuff's just not going to fit in the Labo, like period, but also like it doesn't seem to have, from the trailer we saw, the IR sensor.
Yeah, so like IR games won't work. Yeah, I saw like people worrying about that, and I'm like, that's nothing to really be concerned with, because it's like, it's stuff like Labo, stuff like Ring Fit, stuff that like uses the IR sensor. It's gonna be like a minority of games.
And if Nintendo wanted to, they could address that later. Like they could literally make a new Wii Fit Adventure you just mentioned, you know? They could literally make a new one of those like little pump things and sell it as an accessory and then have that game.
Yeah.
You know? Or like Labo, they could literally put out like new cardboard kits you could buy. You know?
They are definitely not doing that. Labo was in no way successful.
But they could, is what I'm saying. They're not, it's not like, they're fucked now. They could never do this. So.
Oh no, yeah, it's just like, as it exists, it won't work with the new Switch.
Yeah, and then like that also means, I guess, like some of the 1-2 Switch stuff isn't going to work. Not everything. Like maybe that game will work, but some of the stuff, I don't know how they're going to handle that. Or they'll just block the whole game.
But I guarantee, like every game on the Switch people actually care about is going to work.
Yeah, the actual like real games are all going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And part of that's just because that IR sensor nobody really ever used it for much, you know?
Oh, yeah. Nobody really ever used it for much of anything.
Pretty much just Nintendo doing weird, quirky things, you know? That's about it.
Right.
And they didn't even do that with their bigger games, so that's an interesting kind of development there with that IR sensor.
Nintendo Switch 2 Direct.
Yeah, they announced the Nintendo Direct for the system, and it's going to be coming on Wednesday, April 2nd. What's interesting on that is that I watched a bunch of, after I watched the thing, I like to watch, after I watch like a Nintendo Direct, I like to watch reactions to Nintendo Directs. I like to see people get excited. I saw at least 3 people that were like, oh, it's gonna be in February. It's February 4th. Because there's like a date issue between like Europe and the US basically, where, you know, in the US we write our dates, we wrote, you know, and the way it's written on the trailer is 4/2, you know? And so we read that as April 2nd, but people in Europe read that as February 4th.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the problem is some of the people that reacted saying, like, it's February, weren't even European.
I saw the first reaction video I watched was Good Vibes Gaming watching it. They're watching the trailer from the Nintendo UK YouTube, even though they're in America. And, like, the first thing he said, oh, February 2nd, nice. They're going about that, and then like at the end he was like, "Oh wait, no, that's European date format." Oh,
yeah.
Well,
what I want to highlight is literally one of the reaction videos I watched. I don't remember who it was, but it was somebody I've watched stuff from before. They're literally an American reactor watching the American Direct, showing the American date format for the date, and they were still saying February.
What?
Because they're just fucking desperate for it to be in February. They don't want to wait. They want it to be now, so they just like force themselves to like get fucking 4th. Date dyslexia.
Okay, that's even funnier.
Yeah, I was cracking up on that.
Like watching the wrong country's trailer and then like misreading the date.
Yeah, I mean, I did watch like an Irish reactor, and he was watching the American Direct, and he got it wrong, and but that's understandable, you know. It's date confusion or whatever. But it was funny watching somebody it was just like pure copium creating that mistake, you know.
But it's like it's April 2nd for Nintendo Switch 2 Direct.
Again, that's a Wednesday for anybody that needs to know.
And I'm glad that they announced the Direct with a concrete date. I'm glad they did that. Thank you, Nintendo.
Now we can plan for our podcast where we'll cover that.
Right. Instead of just saying, oh, more information later, it's like, thank you. That's super helpful. But I'm fully expecting that Direct. I mean, that's going to be focused on games. It's gonna be focused on.
Yeah, well, it's going to be the equivalent of their January event for the Switch that happened like a few months before. Except it's not going to be a live event. It's going to be a Direct.
Yeah,
which I think is better.
It's mostly going to be talking about games. It's going to be talking about first-party games, launch games, third-party games coming.
Expect a lot of major ports.
Yeah, I imagine most the third-party games are mostly going to be ports of games that already exist.
But there's probably also going to be stuff that's like key games coming out later in the year and stuff like Call of Duty. Like we might get the new Call of Duty when it comes out.
Oh yeah, we're 100% getting Call of Duty. I mean,
well, we're getting it, but I mean, like it's very likely that in addition to just getting Call of Duty, period, that we're going to be getting day and date Call of Duty. You know?
Oh, it is because like the contract Microsoft signed with Nintendo was for day and date feature parity, 100% parity with the other platforms. That's literally in the day and date is literally in the contract.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that part. So, but yeah. So we're gonna get some stuff is gonna be ports, and some stuff is gonna be like games that we know are coming out that are coming after the launch of the Switch 2.
I expect the new Monster Hunter that's coming out for PC, PS5, and Xbox One.
Monster Hunter Wilds?
Yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds. That's coming out this year. I fully expect that to be announced to be also be coming out for Switch 2.
Elden Ring is one a lot of people are expecting.
Yeah.
I think even something like Baldur's Gate is likely. And especially with like the mouse functionality, I could see that being a big deal in the system.
You're going to see a lot of games because unlike with the Switch, like third parties want to be on this from the jump.
Yeah. That's the key difference. Like third parties got onto the Switch with games that you wouldn't even think could run on it, like Witcher 3 and stuff like that, you know, or Nier Automata, like games never expected to run and then actually ran pretty well on the Switch. But that didn't happen right away because nobody was on board with the Switch until like a year or two had passed, you know?
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of games. I'm going to call it now Mario Kart 9 is the launch title for the game.
It's the first thing they showed.
It's the first thing they showed. Yeah. We should mention that in this trailer, we did see Mario Kart 9. We got a glimpse of it.
We'll go into details on that later because I want to kind of save that for the last part.
But I'm 100% that's the launch game. And I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they've had all this time to develop it. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is by far the best selling Switch game. I mean, it outsells the number 2 best-selling Switch game by almost 18 million.
Yeah, it's huge, and it keeps selling. It's still in the top 10 every year.
Yes,
I mean, it's huge.
And I think
8 years later, you know.
And Nintendo is definitely thinking, like, yeah, if we want to sell Switch 2s, like, that needs to be their day one.
Yeah. I mean, I made an argument when people were talking about price, and some people were saying, oh, it'll be 400, and some people were saying, I'd go up to 450, but I'd never go up to 500. And I'm like, I think there's a case that they could actually do okay at 500 with a pack-in. But it would have to be a significant pack-in, specifically Mario Kart 9.
I could see 500 with Mario Kart pack-in.
Yeah.
500 without any pack-ins is not happening.
Or like a bad pack-in, like a Nintendo Land, or like something that people don't value at like $60 or more, like they wouldn't be able to get away with that.
500 without pack-in is not happening, and I do believe there will be an option to get the system without the pack-in, because I think Nintendo does want to offer this for under $500. I
think they're going to do like a Wii U style then, where Wii U had, I mean, obviously they don't want to replicate anything from the Wii U, but Wii U had two SKUs. It had a white SKU that was 8 gigabytes internal memory and no pack-in, and then they had the black SKU, which was 32 gigabytes, right?
I don't think
Nintendo Land.
I don't think they're doing two SKUs. I think they're doing just the system.
The universal system at launch.
Yeah,
like, no differences in memory, no differences in color.
Right, yes. It's just a universal system. They're doing one SKU. It's going to be just the system by itself, or you can get the system bundled with Mario Kart ready to go if you're willing to pay $50 more.
I think they're going to have two colors at launch. I think they're going to have white and black, and they're both going to use the color accents that we saw.
You know what? That is a reasonable prediction. I think that's the reasonable thing.
They're going to do the old piano color thing. White and black. But, and they're both going to have that blue and orange elements to it, because blue and orange look good on black and they also look good on white, so I think that's what they're going to go for. If they do, what's your pick? You going white or black? My Switch sits inside a closet, so it really doesn't matter.
I think I'm going black.
Yeah, probably go black. Mine just but like I said, it doesn't even matter because mine just sits in behind a closed door,
Right.
I never see my Switch. It's hooked up to my TV and it's behind a cabinet door. What else we need to go over on this? Oh, they're going to be doing, after the Nintendo Direct in April, they're going to have in-person playtests around the world.
Yeah.
Starting in April, soon after, I think that same week, basically, in New York and Los Angeles. And then they're moving it to a few other places. And then, like I said, all around the world. So London and Germany, everywhere. And those events are going through June. So some people think that means, okay, so it has to launch after those things. But that's not necessarily true, because Nintendo has done playtest events where all they've had are games that are already out. They did one a few years ago, or last year, didn't they? Where they had a thing where you could go to an event and play games, but it was literally games that were all already out. There was nothing that was not out
they
yet.
did that. Yeah, they did that an event this year. I mean, I'm not super interested in that. I am interested that I do think it's June is going to be the launch. The launch month for it.
That seems to be the case. Yeah, that's
I mean, the timing makes sense with the marketing. Okay,
June or late May, maybe. It's somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh yeah, because it makes sense with the timing of the marketing, right? Because they did this now. They're doing the Direct in April. Then following the Direct, they're doing the in-person, hands-on tour. That screams to me okay, it's not going to be that much longer after that they launch this thing. Yeah. So it's going to be okay, yeah, it's definitely a June release, in my opinion.
I think it might be somewhat tied to those live events, and those live events, I think the last one on record is something like June 5th. So right. I think it's very likely we're going to get it in that first week of June.
Yes.
So somewhere between June 2nd, June 5th, somewhere in that range, yeah.
Yeah. So definitely have your wallets ready in June for this thing. That's what I'm saying.
Well, have your wallets ready on April 2nd, because you're going to have to pre-order
you're going to have
this
to
thing
pre-order
probably,
it. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Because April 2nd, we should be getting games, we should be getting the launch date, the launch price, all those details should be April 2nd. There's also some talk now, some rumors going of a standard, Switch 1 focused Direct in February.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that.
They still got stuff coming,
Yeah, and big stuff too. They got Metroid Prime 4 coming, they got a new Pokemon game coming for Switch 1.
Do you think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be cross-platform?
No cross-gen games.
You don't think there's going to be any
I
cross-gen
don't.
games?
No, I don't think so at all.
I think it would be interesting. I don't know if they'll do it, but I think it would be interesting if Metro Prime 4 launched as a Switch game and then, like, maybe ahead of the Switch 2. And then the second the Switch 2 came out, it had, like, an upgrade patch or something.
They're not going to do that.
They're not going to be interesting.
They don't want.
They would do it.
Nintendo doesn't want two completely. They don't want, like, a version of Metroid Prime 4 that, like, has, like, all these graphical upgrades and stuff on Switch 2, and then just like, oh, but you could play a markedly worse version on the Switch 1. That just seems like very un-Nintendo to me. I think.
No, I'm saying it would be one game, like one SKU.
Oh, okay. It's the same
but
game.
Like when you'd plug it into a Switch 2, you'd have the option to download like an upgrade pack, like to upgrade the textures and everything, you know?
No, you wouldn't get texture upgrade. No, you would get performance improvements. It would just be like performance improvements. It would probably run at a higher resolution, a better frame rate. There wouldn't be like texture pack improvements or anything. Like, again, because that would make the game look markedly better than what people on Switch 1 are playing. I don't think Nintendo wants that. I don't think Nintendo wants to, like, have that big gulf of experience between,
I feel the opopposite on you on that.
I don't, that screen, that is so, to me, that sounds like so un-Nintendo.
Here's what I'm saying is, like, let's say they launch Prime 4 in March. This is the time that people were thinking, you know, the Switch 2 would launch in, and now we're saying more like June. Metroid games specifically don't have that, like, long tail life that, like, a game like Mario Kart does, where it's like 8 years later and it's still in the top 10. Metroid games kind of sell to their audience, and then they're, like, done, you know? And
right.
So they'll be in the top 10 for, like, that first month, and then they're just gone. And I think it might be an interesting way to reinvigorate life into, like, the existing SKU. If, like, let's say they launched Metro Prime 4 in March, okay? And then in June, they wouldn't announce it probably before the game came out, they'd announce it after. Like, you could take Metro Prime 4 over to your Switch 2, and there are improvements. And I don't just mean, like, performance improvements, but, like, graphical improvements.
Yeah, I don't...
Not like the way that you could pop in a game into, like, a PS2 game into a launch PS3 and get, like, up, you know, or was it PS1 to PS3? I don't remember, but where it just did, like, resolution jumps and stuff. Not like that, but like an actual, like, planned improvement for that system.
That scenario, like, is 100% not happening. 100%.
I disagree. I don't necessarily disagree that it will happen. Like, I don't firmly believe
right.
It will happen. I just think it would be very interesting if it did. And I don't think it would be particularly anti-Nintendo specifically because Metroid games don't have long tail lives.
I just think, like, it's kind of like Nintendo doesn't want to send that message that they think people still on the original Switch are, like, somehow second-class citizens to them now or anything. You know, I think Nintendo wants to make sure people have a consistent experience with
But I think it would have the opposite effect of what you're saying, because I think what it would say is, like, you own a Switch, you own a version of Metroid Prime 4 that's really good, and you already own this, and now that the Switch 2 is coming out, you've learned that you have a Switch 2 game. Like, you already have a Switch 2 game. Like, you're already ready. All you need is the system. You already got the game. And it was perfect, worked perfectly fine on the Switch, and now you get, like, a second chance at it, where you get it improved for free. It's there. I don't think they would say, like, oh, here's the direct for, you know, a direct for Switch 1 games, you know, and then in that direct before the Switch 2 comes out, where they would say, and if you take it to your Switch 2, you get an even better. Like, I don't think that. I think basically people would have already beaten the game, put the game aside, been getting ready for the Switch 2, and then find out, oh shit, I already own a Switch 2 game.
Right.
I think it would be more along those lines.
I just don't think it's happening. I think you're going to get performance, you know, enhancements from playing it. Like, you are going to get, like, a better frame rate. You're going to get, you know,
that would also be a new thing from Nintendo, because Nintendo's never done that with their backwards compatibility before. Their backwards compatibility has never had upgrades.
But, like, I do believe you're going to be able to have access to 60 FPS. You're going to have access to upscaling via DLSS. You know, it's still going to be Switch graphics. It's still going to be like...
But that would be different also, like I said, because, like, for example, if you put a Wii game into a Wii U, the Wii U has more hardware, but it's all underclocked into, like, a Wii mode to play that software. So even though you have way more hardware, the games that were running at 30 FPS aren't going to run at 60. They still run at 30, exactly the same. Same thing happened with, you know, DS games that you play on, like, 3DS or something. Like, there aren't improvements, really. I think the only thing where we've seen improvements have been to, like, on some of the handhelds for like load times and stuff. And that's like it. That's like the only place we've seen like actual improvements from one system to another. Or the one intentional time they did that, which was with Game Boy Color, where they had the special dungeon in that one Zelda game.
Yeah. The Game Boy Color had the special dungeon. Fun fact too, if you played the Oracle games on a Game Boy Advance, you got access to a new exclusive shop called the Advance Shop.
Mhm.
And unlock that.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, like those are like little minor things too. Like it doesn't like
Nintendo's never
really
done like a you just get performance boost on a game thing on a
no,
new
but
system
like
when they've
it's
done backwards.
never,
They've never done
but,
that
like,
before.
I don't think like they've ever had backwards compatibility where like something like that was like possible, really.
Well, I
to be
agree with
honest.
you. I'm just playing devil's advocate here because
Right,
what I'm
yeah.
trying to say is like this is already unprecedented territory. So we can't say like it's not Nintendo like to do
I'm
that
just
because
saying
it's not Nintendo like to do improvements either.
Right. And also, like, we don't know if they're gonna even do improvements. Like, that's just me guessing.
Yeah.
Even that is just a guess. We don't know. Nothing could happen when you put a Switch game into a Switch 2, except that it runs.
Let's
That's
talk about Mario Kart.
Yes, please. Let's talk about Mario Kart.
Okay, so first I want to go over the details that we've learned from it, and then we can go into what we thought of it and stuff. But first off, we saw basically one track. It's kind of like a desert track, looked like an American desert, like a Arizona, New Mexico type area. A street that had like diners and gas stations off to the side as you were racing by them and stuff.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong's been redesigned.
Donkey Kong looks more like his movie counterpart, which
looks more like his classic counterpart.
I really love that Yoshi's Diner, by the way. I love the design of it. It looks really cool. It's really fun design.
But Donkey Kong, they've kind of moved away from the rare style Donkey Kong.
Yes. This is rumored by, I do believe that we are gearing up for a new Donkey Kong game on Switch 2, where he is going to look like that.
Well, Miyamoto said when they did that look for Donkey Kong in the Mario movie, that it was like an opportunity to like redesign Donkey Kong.
Yeah, he did say that in like one of the promo directs.
Which implies that it carries on to more than just the movie, you know? Now we're seeing it here. And
now we're seeing
it in more places.
So we've officially moved on from the rare Donkey Kong to a new Donkey Kong.
That's closer to kind of the original design, too.
Yes.
The other important piece and detail that I've noticed, maybe you've noticed more, is that this seems to be 24 player now.
It does seem to be, It does seem to be supporting a lot of players, which is interesting.
There are 24 starting lines. So on Mario Kart 8, there's 15, and in this, there's 24. It doesn't show them starting a race, but it shows them drive over that part of the track where the starting lines are, and people paused it and counted it, and there's exactly 24 starting lines, which implies that even if it isn't 24 player, that there'll be 24 characters on the track.
Right. And I mean, that's interesting. I know like Nintendo had the online playtest where they were like testing 5,000 people playing together on the servers.
Which was like a separate game thing, but in addition to that, it was also kind of just a stress test for their networks. It was
a stress test for a network. I have to think maybe that's because they were thinking of features like this where you're going to have Mario Kart with like 24 racers on the track at one time.
Yeah. So those are kind of the specific details I noticed. Like I said, the stage, the Donkey Kong redesign, 24 players. Did you notice anything else specifically about it?
Really notice anything else specifically about it. I mean, so little of it was shown, to be honest, but like it was like very much like, this is definitely Mario Kart 9. Nothing in this looked like Mario Kart 8, other than the fact like, that looks like Mario Kart. Yes, it does. But it does not look like 8.
I think the track looked like it could have been like a booster pass track or like an add-on track.
Right. It's not an actual track that's an 8.
No, it isn't. Yeah. And the designs, like Donkey Kong looks drastically different, but like even Mario and stuff and the karts they're riding in all look different too. So So it's clearly a new game. This is clearly not 8.
Yes. And I think like their decision to focus on Mario Kart as like the first Switch 2 game that we get to see kind of solidifies the importance Nintendo is placing on Mario Kart as a franchise now. Like it is like, this is definitely the launch game for the system. This is the game that's going to sell consoles. We need to spotlight that before anything else.
It's the ultimate system seller.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's smart. I don't think they've ever launched with a Mario Kart, have they? The SNES would be the only one I could think of, but that was after, too. That wasn't a launch game either.
No, yeah.
And the Switch, it was pretty soon after. It was only a few months after.
Mario Kart as an idea didn't even exist when they launched the SNES. That came out of Mario Kart actually came out of internal discussions about doing a sequel to F-Zero. Because they wanted to do like a 2-player split screen F-Zero, and the way F-Zero was designed to like be like 60 FPS and to like be fast, like they literally could not technologically get that to work. And so they stuck with the idea of doing like a split screen 2-player racer, but then they worked backwards and like completely redesigned it until it became Mario Kart.
Yeah, and it's, I think the closest they've come to a Mario Kart at launch was on the Switch.
Yes.
And that was like a few months after. So it's like launch window. Whereas like this seems to be an actual launch game. It is the first Switch 2 game we've seen.
Yes. Yeah, and it's just because Deluxe really overperformed. I mean, I don't think Nintendo didn't launch the Switch with Deluxe because Breath of the Wild was going to be like the big system seller for Switch. I think like Deluxe was there just because it was easy to port. Switch needed content in its first year. Nintendo ended up doing a lot of Wii U ports to Switch just because it was easy to do, but Deluxe really felt like it was there because to fill up slots in that first year to make sure like there were games to purchase, and I don't think Nintendo had the expectation that it would like end up selling over 60 million units.
Yeah.
When
I mean, Mario Kart's
it.
always a huge seller, but they probably were expecting more like 20 million or something. Like just 65 or something.
Oh yeah, like Mario Kart really overperformed beyond anybody's expectations, and now it's like Nintendo's number one franchise.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I kind of got to say, like, nothing really blew me away for the first game we see for the Switch 2, you know. It wasn't doing anything, like, super impressive, you know. I mean, it's got a lot more people on the track. Can't really, some of it you can't tell also, not just because it's such a short amount of footage, but also because of the encoding on the video and stuff. We can't really tell what frame rate it's running at and, you know, like what resolution it's running at. Like, all that kind of stuff is held back from us, you know. So, we don't really know that. And they also picked a kind of a boring flat course. They didn't like choose some crazy ass course that really highlighted it.
I mean, they did.
I think that's very intentional.
Yeah, it's intentional because like Mario Kart is not the focus of this trailer.
Yeah,
you know, like the game, it was only there to like demonstrate. This was about hardware. This was about games specifically. So like I saw GameSpot like, oh, you know, like they didn't tell us enough about Mario Kart. It's like the trailer's not about Mario Kart.
Yeah. I am kind of, I mean, we can get to this now, is like what your overall feelings were about this whole trailer. And I am kind of disappointed because we did wait a really, really long time for this trailer. I mean, this is the longest gap in a Nintendo system ever, isn't it now?
Yes, it is. Officially.
Yeah, and it's crazy how long it is, and just to hear nothing from all that time. And so many rumors, so many leaks, many of those that ended up coming true, it's the recent ones especially.
I mean,
nothing. It's not a word from Nintendo, and now we get this, and it's a little disappointing.
It's hard not to feel like, yes, I would have loved more information. I would love to see like more games, more stuff about it. But
to clarify, I'm still getting the system day one.
Of course. Yeah.
Still getting this day one, so I'm not saying I'm disappointed. I'm done with this. I'm not saying
I'm done with Nintendo forever.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like it's a little disappointing. Like I thought we'd get like 3 or 4 games in this. Like I wasn't expecting game trailers, but I was expecting something more along the lines of the original Switch trailer. And that game that trailer had like, you know, it only showed brief snippets too, but it showed like 6 games or something.
But again, the trailer also like had like a different objective where that trailer was all about explaining a concept, and here this was like just like showing off the hardware of the Switch 2 and what makes the Switch 2 hardware, you know, different from the Switch 1. So it wasn't like really, oh yeah, we got this like new concept we're trying to sell you. They're just like kind of trying to say like, hey, we know this looks the same as what you have, but like we want to highlight what's different about it.
Yeah, it's still a little disappointing though. I wish they'd put in at least maybe like one third-party game in a similar way to the way they showed Skyrim in the Switch trailer. I wish they'd shown, you know, Elden Ring or something like that. I think would have been really interesting.
I mean, that's what April is for. I mean, I'm going to be with you there. I would have loved to see more games.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I really want to see at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ding this presentation for the leaks. I'm not going to say, oh, well, I already see that because I looked at leaks. Because, like, that's not Nintendo's fault.
Yeah, Nintendo didn't make those leaks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, yeah, but I will say that I'm happy that it's real. It's confirmed. We have a release date. It's coming out in 2025. It's all official now. And now that it's official, we start talking about it for real, and hopefully, like, now the door is open for third parties to make their announcements and to, like, be able to admit that, yeah, this game's coming out the Switch too. Like,
I'm happy we've seen it. I'm happy we've got a name. I'm really happy that we know when we're actually getting our real information about the system.
I'm happy that I'm happy they gave a date for Nintendo Direct. They gave a date for when we're getting new information. Like, we're not left wondering when we're going to hear more details. We know. I am grateful for that.
So are you gonna get yourself tickets for the New York event in April?
Nope.
I'd maybe consider doing it if I read up, like, everybody that you would go with has to have, like, a Nintendo account. Well, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'd go, because since they're highlighting Mario Kart, you know, like, maybe I'll go with, like, my mom, because I play Mario Kart with her, and she'd have kind of fun doing that or something. But then I'm like, I have to set up an account for her and get all that shit done tomorrow to sign up for. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna bother.
Nah.
Well, that's it for our Switch 2 discussion and our news segment, and that leaves only full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we're going to be talking about Creature Commandos. This is the first entry in the DCU. Well, kind of, because apparently there's all sorts of micro elements of existing other things in DC that are part of the DCU. But this is the first, like, full-fledged project that's part of the DCU. And then when Superman comes out, we'll say, well, this is the first live-action thing from the DCU. So it's kind of like a weird, sloppy... Just kind of an interesting, we're in like a weird sloppy state of entering James Gunn's DCU, and this is the first official thing in it. Creature Commandos.
What did you think about Creature Commandos? What were your impressions of it?
Well, I have to tell you, like, right from the very beginning, I had, like, heavy Invincible vibes. It just really felt like Invincible to me. It just, cause it's animated, it's got, like, a satire that's front and center. Some of it's a little bit meta. It's got, you know, some violence to it.
It's got a lot of violence to it, actually.
Yeah. I really had strong Invincible vibes going in.
It's very Invincible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's very much along those veins. But it's also, like, very James Gunn.
Yeah, I told you about the music when we talked about our best of awards last year, and how, like, they went with this very, like, Eastern European, like, folk punk kind of style of music that's, like, permeated throughout the series, and how that like, won my runner-up for best music. And I told you, I said, once you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So now you do. Now you've seen it.
Now I've seen it. Yeah, exactly. But, like, what I was going for, not just the music, but it was, like, my general impressions was, like, plot-wise, storyline-wise, I thought it was fine. I thought it was, like, yeah, okay. The plot's a bit messy. There's, like, some plot holes. It's fine. It's whatever. It is what it is. What really made this shine for me, made this resonate, was the characters. And it's what James Gunn does best.
James Gunn's really good specifically at doing, like, a story that's kind of dark, but has a lot of empathy.
Yes.
Like, and that's what he's good at. So, like, it makes him really good with characters. And the more he can make you love characters, the better James Gunn is, like, doing in his style, you know?
Oh, yeah. And he really, like, gets you, like, attached to, like, all these, like, weird characters. I mean, it's cliche to say now, but it's classic James Gunn. It's James, he's doing what he does best.
Yeah. He's giving you empathy for, like, weird, like, obscure, kind of somewhat freaky or off-putting characters, making you feel empathy for them.
Especially, like, as this does, like, you know, like, it's only 7 episodes, but, like, he bases each episode around, like, a different member of the Creature Commandos and goes into, like, their backstory and kind of weaves it through, like, you know, as the main narrative is happening, you know? And we kind of get to, like, learn a bit about each of them as the series goes on.
Even Weasel.
Yeah, even Weasel. And Weasel has, like, a really tragic backstory. And it's funny because, like, it goes all the way back to the Suicide Squad, where they mention, you know, like, Weasel killed, like, a bunch of children. And then we find out for the first time here that, like, that wasn't the case. He was trying to save the children. and he was just like, because the people, like the cops and like the guy there was paranoid of him
Shoot
because
first
he
and
was
ask
a
questions
monster.
later, yeah.
Yeah, they just saw him as a monster and thought like he was attacking the kids, you know. So he got like unfairly blamed for some horrible thing he never did.
Yeah. I love the GI Robot episode.
Yeah. The GI Robot episode, the Brides episode. I will say,
It's
like,
an interesting take on the Frankenstein's bride story with the bride here.
it was really interesting the way, like, he did it, because, like, he kind of inverted it, because usually the story is Frankenstein's the sympathetic character, and Victor is, like, the evil person, but, like, in this, like, Victor comes off as, like, really sympathetic, and Frankenstein is, like, just a monster. Frankenstein's just this awful stalker.
Yeah.
And David Harbour is Frankenstein, and, like, fantastic performance there. I don't like how they rushed the ending to where, like, there's this whole build-up throughout the whole season of Frankenstein trying to get to the bride, and then, like, that just culminates in, like, 2 seconds of Frankenstein getting shot a bunch of times, and then that's it. That was anticlimactic.
Well, I think it's going to carry into season 2, I'm sure. So.
Oh, yeah, it is. He shows up on the end credits. It's going to carry into season 2, but it did feel like that final episode, especially, like, it did feel like rushed. Again, there are some problems with, like, the plot and the pacing, but the character work here is what really shines. Like, I ended up loving all the characters. I'm on board for season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah. Like I said, James Gunn is really good at taking characters that are kind of outcast and then giving you a lot of empathy for them and making you connect to them in that way. I mean, that's why Guardians works so well. You know, you have a bunch of kind of loser, outcast type characters, but you grow very attached to them, you know, and this is kind of what this is doing as well. It's what Peacemaker did, especially Peacemaker, because Peacemaker is a real piece of shit, you know?
Right, yeah.
And it still, like, made you feel empathy for him as the series went on, you know? You got to see kind of what made him that way. I did kind of like the double twist they did on the villain, where at first they set it up like, oh, you know, we need to protect this girl, this princess, from Cersei, who's going after her because she wants power. And then they find Cersei and it's like, well, actually, Cersei is trying to get rid of her because she sees visions and that tells her that the world's gonna end. And it's like, oh shit, well, we need to kill her now. And then it's like, oh no, actually,
yeah,
like,
it was like
that's bullshit.
The double twist. Yeah, that's like the double twist of, like, is Cersei lying or is Cersei telling the truth? And, like, the whole, like, that's where, like, all the tension comes from. And we find out, like, in the end, like, Cersei was telling the truth. That whole thing.
But that the princess had set up something to obfuscate that. To
right, yeah.
That.
Yeah, I mean, that was the basic plot. I mean, yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, overall, I enjoyed Creature Commandos. I'll watch season 2 for sure.
Yeah, it was fun. R.I.P. Nina.
Yeah, that sucked. Oh,
Queen.
that was a gut punch.
Yeah.
Again, James Gunn also, like, knows how to deliver those gut punches too. Woof. Yeah, that sucked. I was like, oh man. Yeah. But yeah, it looks like we got, like, some new members of Commandos at the end of, like,
King
season
Shark.
1. Yeah, King Shark. Yeah, King Shark was there.
I forgot to look this up.
GI Robot.
I was gonna look it up, but I forgot. Is
some mummy
Stallone
guy
still doing King Shark's voice in Creature Commandos?
I have no idea. I didn't look it up either.
No, it's Diedrich Bader.
Oh, okay. Diedrich Bader. Okay, that makes sense.
Who is from the Drew Carey Show.
Yes. Diedrich Bader is great. I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But that was really cool.
Yeah, so that was interesting. A turn there on that, and when we get the new crew and everything. I did like the bride's rationale for, like, killing the princess. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do my duty or I'm gonna protect the world. I really don't even care about the world. Like, but you killed my friend, so you're dead.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It was like, yeah. Again, like, I love the relationship the bride had formed with Nina, and so, like, oh my god, yeah.
I also think the show did a great job with Dr. Phosphorus, and they made a point about how you can't tell if he's actually smiling. Like, it looks like he's smiling, but you don't know if he is. And the kind of idea that you don't know what he's actually thinking. And they actually did a good job of, like, creating tension. Like, when he's around that little girl in, like, Eastern Europe, and he's like, is he gonna, like, kill her? Like, you just don't know what he's gonna do. And you can't tell, like, if he's coming, like, they'll have a quiet moment between them, and you can't tell, like, is he just feeling nothing, or is he feeling something? Because they're going through his backstory and showing, like, how he basically just, like, had his last care taken from him. So it's like, what's he gonna do? I like the way they played into that, aspect of it. I thought that was kind of well done, too. That's pretty much it. Anything else to say about Creature Commandos?
No, that's about it.
Well, then that is it for our show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can check out next week. We are going to be doing Castlevania Nocturne Season 2, which is currently available on Netflix, so you can check that out and be up to date for us for that discussion next week on the podcast. But until then, you can follow me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. Those same accounts on Blue Sky as well, so check that out there. You can also subscribe to this podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts. And you can check out our YouTube channel, which has the entirety of the podcast, all of our back episodes, as well as additional content like our old podcast, The Weekly Set. The links to our YouTube page, our SoundCloud page, RSS feed, everything like that is all found on our website, thelittleScreen.com. So you can check that out as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Little Screen. Visit our website at thetittlescreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.